Transistor is the next game from us at Supergiant. Our first game was Bastion, and we are with Transistor. This is our new science fiction themed action RPG. We consider Bastion an action RPG as well, and we felt like we were able to sort of explore that genre in some really ways that we found really exciting with that game. And even after finishing Bastion, we were like, there's more we want to do here. So if Bastion was our take on like a fantasy themed world, this is our take on a science fiction themed world. So some of these ideas here have been percolating for some time, and we're finally ready to show it here at PAX East. I think players will find that it's got this, not only is the whole world of the game very new, but it's got a focus on like this more strategic sort of combat system that we've...
I noticed that when I played, yeah, the freeze frame stuff there.
So just for our next question, were there any inspirations with that science fiction background?
Yeah, I mean, there are too many... The question of like the inspirations behind Bastion was always something that threw me for a loop, because it was like, where do I start? Like even we were a 7-person team on Bastion. We're up to 10 people now, but everyone on the team has their own individual inspirations from all sorts of media, from games to movies to literature to comics, music, and all sorts of things. And we kind of mashed all that stuff together.
A collection of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's hard to narrow it down without picking favorites, because it's just too many individual things. But yeah, in this case, I mean, part of the appeal of a science fiction setting to us was like, man, what if we could set a game in like a cityscape where you're like, you're like blown away by these huge buildings all around you, and some of the more modern or more futuristic kind of looking things, both visually and gameplay wise. Some of the themes that come with an urban setting as opposed to like a sort of destroyed fantasy world setting in Bastion. So there were a bunch of different reasons why we were interested in trying something like this, that for whatever reason I get gun shy going into specifics.
Awesome. Actually, in my preview, I said it reminded me of Blade Runner mixed with Bastion. I kind of saw a bit of that in there. I thought that.
Yeah, I mean I would say it's impossible to conceive of a science fiction city without acknowledging Blade Runner. But I think like the way that we think about it is we love material like that so much that we kind of want to get away from it. Like we don't want to. It's like their thing. To get more specific, it's like whether it's a cyberpunk game like Deus Ex: Human Revolution that like nails cyberpunk, or like a far future franchise like Mass Effect that's like, oh wow, this is totally awesome as far as like intergalactic, different races and stuff. Like we want to have our own identity. We don't want to just
copy.
Yeah, we don't want to copy, because we'll just be inferior to those things that are so great already. So it takes us a while to find, to come up with something that's like kind of remotely coherent. This is what we have so far.
I say with the art style, you are pulling off the identity thing really well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's thanks to this lady behind me. Jen Z is our art director, and I am a huge fan of her work. So yeah, she's her work on this game. Well, thankfully other people enjoy it too, but I'm always inspired by the work she does. So
it's really great. We'll move on here. Bastion is really well received. You know that, lots of awards and stuff like that. So did you learn anything from Bastion coming into Transistor?
I mean, we learned an awful lot making that game for sure. But at the same time, I don't think we've made things too much easier on ourselves, in the sense that like I think the kind of personalities that we have on the team is like or I won't speak for everyone, but at least for myself, it's like unless something is very difficult, I don't feel like we're doing it right. So I think we sort of like to create new problems for ourselves in the sense of like. So anyway, there's a lot that we've learned, but we've bitten off a lot more with this type of game as well. So we're always pushing to try to get at something that feels like it's always out of reach, kind of all through development. We're clawing away at something, trying to find whatever's at the heart of this game. But I think, probably the most important thing that the most important experience we gained having worked on Bastion is just continuing to work together as a team. I like to say that the single most important thing we have is just like the creative chemistry on the team. So the best thing we have going for us on this project is that everyone who worked on Bastion is working on this game again together. And the shared experience that we have, having worked on that game, having gone through that, is now informing what we're doing here. We've sort of been through thick and thin together, and I think that just, if nothing else, it just fills me with it helps make me feel reassured that things will hopefully be alright, because these people that I've got working with me, I would like nothing better than to keep working with them indefinitely. So
perfect.
Yeah.
I hope in the future you guys continue, making it.
We would like nothing better than to keep going.
Perfect. So maybe a bit more specific question. I had a chance to play your game.
Yeah.
And Red here is our protagonist.
Yeah.
I noticed the beginning intro said she was attacked by assassins and stuff along those lines. Does her gender play an important role in the game at all? Or?
It depends on.
Or why did you go with Red as a protagonist?
Yeah, so her gender is, so we certainly don't flip a coin when it comes to deciding the genders of our characters. I think the simple explanation there is that the protagonist characters of our games, in addition to being the player character, the second most important thing about them is they reflect the world that they come from.
Yeah.
So in Bastion, it's sort of this frontier fantasy world. It's like a hard-living world, hard-drinking, hard-living. You get this scrappy kid who's been working all his life, smashing stuff with a hammer, and you just our goal with him was just to have this empathetic kind of scrappy character that you just don't want him to die. He's in such a bad situation. Whereas in this game, the setting, the city of Cloudbank, is intended to be like a romanticized setting. So here you have this elegant woman who reflects the values of this world. Her gender, like I said, is no accident, and part of the story involves her relationship to the character who's speaking, a voice that's coming from this weapon called the Transistor. So that relationship is important to us, and her identity as this sort of fallen. She was once this kind of inspiring singer, where something very bad has happened to her at the beginning of this game. So those are some of the ideas there, but that's kind of it. I mean, it's not something that we saw in and of itself. It's not something that we saw was let's be edgy and make her a woman. We don't.
It wasn't trying to make a statement, but it really reflected.
I don't. I'm aware of some of the some of the kind of prevailing commentary around that. I grew up playing some of my favorite games when I was a kid. Games like Phantasy Star, games like Metroid and Super Metroid, and I'm just these were games where the gender of the protagonist was an interesting part of the game, but not the point or the message or something. So I take inspiration from games like that as well.
Perfect. I think we're going to have to wrap it up.
Yep.
Thanks for chatting with us.
My pleasure.